A SEAL Admiral was touring a veterans hospital when he stopped to thank an elderly man sitting quietly in a wheelchair. Just routine courtesy for someone who'd served. But when the Admiral asked his call sign out of politeness, the old man's answer made him freeze. Shadow 1. The name hit like a flashbulb. Every SEAL in the room went silent. Some call signs aren't just names. They're ghosts from missions that never happened. Share where you're watching from in the comments and hit subscribe, so you never miss stories like this. Is this some kind of joke? Rear Admiral Michael Hastings couldn't believe what he'd just heard. He stood frozen in the hallway of the Veterans Affairs Hospital in San Diego, California, staring at the old man in the wheelchair. The man was maybe 82, thin to the point of frailty, with white hair and skin like weathered leather. He wore a simple gray sweatshirt and sweatpants, the standard issue clothing of long-term care patients. His right leg ended at the knee, the empty pant leg folded and pinned. His hands rested on the wheelchair's armrests, trembling slightly with age or illness. Hastings had been doing his quarterly tour of VA facilities, part of his duties as the commanding officer of Naval Special Warfare Command. Standard rounds, shaking hands with veterans, thanking them for their service, public relations, mostly, important work, but routine. Until this moment. I'm sorry, sir, Hastings said slowly, his voice tight. What did you say your call sign was? The old man looked up at him with pale gray eyes that seemed to see through walls. Shadow 1. His voice was quiet, raspy from decades of hard use. Long time ago. Behind Hastings, 3 Navy SEALs who'd accompanied him on the tour had gone completely still. Master Chief Marcus Webb, a 20-year veteran with multiple combat deployments, looked like he'd seen a ghost. The 2 younger SEALs, both recent graduates of Bud's training, didn't understand yet, but they recognized the change in atmosphere. Shadow 1, Hastings repeated. His mind was racing, pulling up memories from his earliest days as a young SEAL candidate, from the stories told late at night in training, from the whispered legends that every operator learned. Shadow 1 doesn't exist. That's a myth, a story they tell at Bud's to motivate candidates. The old man's expression didn't change. I know what they tell you. Sir, with all respect, Shadow 1 was supposed to be a SEAL operator from Vietnam who ran solo deep reconnaissance missions behind enemy lines. Missions so classified they were never documented. The story says he operated alone for months at a time, gathering intel, sabotaging supply lines, extracting high-value targets. They say he never existed because the missions never existed. That's what they're supposed to say, the old man replied quietly. Master Chief Webb stepped forward, his voice respectful but firm. Sir, every SEAL class hears about Shadow 1, but there's no record, no service file, no after-action reports, no proof any of it was real. Of course there's no proof. The old man's hand stopped trembling for a moment, gripping the armrests with surprising strength. That was the point. Plausible deniability. If I got caught, if I got killed, the Navy could honestly say I didn't exist. No mission, no operator, no international incident. Hastings felt his heart pounding. He'd been a SEAL for 28 years. He'd commanded SEAL Team 3, fought in Iraq and Afghanistan, run classified operations across 3 continents. He knew the history of naval special warfare inside and out, and he knew that Shadow 1 was supposed to be a legend, a motivational story, not a real person sitting in a wheelchair at the San Diego VA. Sir, what's your real name? Hastings asked. William Grant, Chief Petty Officer, retired. SEAL Team 1, 1968 to 1975. One of the young SEALs pulled out his phone, started searching military databases. Admiral, I'm not finding any record of a William Grant in SEAL Team 1 during those years. You won't, Grant said. My records were scrubbed in 1975. Part of the deal. What deal? Hastings demanded. Grant looked at him for a long moment. The deal that let me come home. The deal that kept me out of a diplomatic crisis. The deal that erased 7 years of my life so the government could pretend I never did what they asked me to do. The hallway had gone quiet. Other veterans, nurses, staff members had stopped what they were doing to listen. Something about the old man's voice carried weight that couldn't be ignored. Hastings pulled up a chair, sat down at eye level with Grant. Sir, if what you're saying is true, if you really are Shadow One, then you need to tell me your story, because every SEAL who's ever gone through training has heard about you. And if you're real, if those missions actually happened, then we deserve to know. Grant's eyes drifted to something far away. You think you want to know, but some stories are better left as legends. With respect, sir, I disagree. Grant studied the Admiral's face, saw genuine curiosity mixed with respect. Finally, he nodded slowly. All right, but not here, not in public. He gestured to a nearby room. In there, just you and your men, and when I'm done, you'll understand why I stayed dead for 50 years. They wheeled Grant into a small consultation room and closed the door. Hastings sat across from him, the three SEALs standing at attention behind their Admiral. The old man looked even frailer in the harsh fluorescent light, but his eyes had sharpened, focused. 1968, Grant began. I graduated BUDS in February, got assigned to SEAL Team 1, deployed to Vietnam in April. I was 22 years old. Thought I was invincible. His voice carried a bitter edge. I was good. Really good. Navigation, close quarters combat, languages. I picked up Vietnamese and some Mandarin. After 6 months in country, they pulled me aside, said they had a special assignment. What kind of assignment? Master Chief Webb asked. The kind that doesn't get briefed to anyone except the people who need to know. They called it Operation Silent Shadow. The concept was simple. Insert a single operator deep into North Vietnam or Laos with minimal equipment. No support, no extraction plan. The operator would live off the land, gather intelligence on enemy movements, sabotage key targets when opportunities arose, and report back via encrypted radio bursts every 72 hours. Hastings felt cold settle into his bones. That's suicide. One man alone in enemy territory with no backup. That's why they needed someone crazy enough to volunteer, Grant said. They asked for volunteers from 3 SEAL teams. 7 of us raised our hands. They put us through another 3 months of training, survival, advanced reconnaissance, psychological conditioning. By the end, only 2 of us were left. Me and a guy named Danny Morrison. What happened to Morrison? One of the young SEALs asked. Grant's face darkened. He ran the first Shadow mission, lasted 11 days before the NVA caught him. They tortured him for 3 days trying to get him to admit he was American military. He never broke. They executed him and left his body as a warning. Officially, he was KIA during a routine patrol. His family never knew what really happened. The room was absolutely silent. After Morrison died, they asked if I still wanted to volunteer. I said yes. I was young, stupid, and angry, so they gave me the call sign Shadow One and sent me into hell. How many missions? Hastings asked. 13. Over 18 months. The shortest was 3 weeks. The longest was 78 days. Grant's hands were shaking again. I lived in the jungle like an animal, ate whatever I could find or kill, avoided enemy patrols by moving at night, used a knife more than a gun because gunfire draws attention, slept in trees, in caves, sometimes just buried under leaves waiting for patrols to pass. What kind of intelligence did you gather? Troop movements mostly, supply cache locations, officer identification. Sometimes I'd sabotage ammunition dumps or fuel stores, small enough to look like accidents, big enough to slow them down. Grant paused, and sometimes they'd give me a specific target, an officer, a political commissar, someone the CIA wanted gone but couldn't officially kill. I'd track them for days, wait for the right moment and make it look like anything except an American operator. Hastings felt his stomach turn. How many targets? Grant looked at him with those gray eyes that had seen too much. Do you really want to know? Yes, sir. 17 confirmed. Maybe more that I never verified. Grant's voice was flat, emotionless. I'm not proud of it. I'm not ashamed of it. It's just what happened, what they asked me to do, what I did to come home. Master Chief Webb spoke quietly. Sir, why did you stop? What happened in 1975? Grant's expression changed. The hardness cracked, revealing something underneath. Pain. Grief. My last mission. April 1975. Saigon was about to fall. The war was over, but there were American POWs still unaccounted for. 3 of them, supposedly held in a camp 20 miles northwest of Hanoi. The CIA had intel but couldn't verify. They asked me to go in, confirm the POWs were there, and if possible, facilitate an extraction. He closed his eyes, his breathing ragged. I went in, found the camp. The POWs were there. 3 Army soldiers who'd been missing for over a year. I got close enough to see their faces through the wire. They were alive, barely, starving, beaten, but alive. What happened? Hastings asked, though he dreaded the answer. I radioed back, sent coordinates, requested immediate extraction team. But command came back and said the mission was scrubbed. Too risky, too close to the fall of Saigon. Diplomatic complications. They ordered me to exfiltrate immediately. Grant's voice broke. I refused, told them I wasn't leaving without those men. They threatened to court-martial me. Said I was disobeying direct orders. I told them to go to hell. His hands were clenched into fists now despite their trembling. I spent 3 days planning a rescue, alone, no backup, no support, just me, a rifle, and the certainty that I wasn't leaving American soldiers to die in a cage. Did you get them out? The young SEAL asked. Grant's face was wet with tears. I got 2 out. The 3rd one died during the firefight, took a round through the chest. I carried him as far as I could, but he bled out in my arms 3 miles from the extraction point. The room felt like it was suffocating. I got the other 2 to a river extraction. Navy helo picked them up. They survived, went home to their families, got debriefed and sworn to secrecy about how they were rescued. And you? Hastings asked. I got shot extracting them. Shrapnel from a grenade took my leg below the knee. I made it to the extraction point but lost too much blood. The helo crew stabilized me, got me to a field hospital in Thailand. I woke up 3 days later with 1 leg and a message from Naval Special Warfare Command. Grant's voice was bitter now. They told me the mission never happened. The rescue never happened. The POWs were officially rescued during a standard recovery operation by a Marine recon team. My role was classified. My service record would be scrubbed. I would be medically discharged, given full disability, and ordered never to speak about shadow operations. They erased you, Master Chief Webb said, his voice filled with disgust. They protected themselves, Grant corrected. If anyone found out the Navy had been running solo deep reconnaissance assassinations in North Vietnam and Laos, it would have been an international incident. So they made me disappear, gave me a new identity for medical records, shuffled me through the VA system, and left me to rot. Hastings stood up, his face red with anger. Sir, that's unconscionable. You saved American lives. You served with honor. You deserved recognition, not erasure. Grant looked up at him, and for the first time, he smiled slightly. Recognition? Admiral, I killed 17 people with my bare hands or a knife. I lived like an animal for months. I disobeyed direct orders and got a man killed trying to be a hero. You think I deserve recognition for that? I think you deserve the truth to be told, Hastings said firmly. Admiral Hastings stood there, looking at William Grant, feeling the weight of 50 years of injustice pressing down on the small room. Sir, with your permission, I want to investigate this. I want to find the records, the proof, the truth about what you did. Grant shook his head slowly. You won't find anything. They were thorough. I've spent years trying to find some piece of evidence that I actually existed, that those missions were real. Nothing. It's like I was never there. What about the 2 POWs you rescued? They'd remember. They'd corroborate your story. I don't know who they were, Grant said quietly. Never got their names, just saw their faces through the wire, got them out, and watched the helicopter take them away. For all I know, they're dead now. Or they were sworn to secrecy so completely they've convinced themselves it happened differently. Master Chief Webb pulled out his phone. Admiral, permission to make some calls. I know people at the Naval Special Warfare Archives. Maybe there's something buried deep enough that it wasn't fully purged. Do it, Hastings ordered. While Webb stepped out to make calls, Hastings sat back down across from Grant. Sir, tell me about the other shadow operators. You said Morrison was killed. Were there others after you? Grant's expression darkened. 3 more. Shadow 2 through Shadow 4. 2 lasted less than a month before they were KIA. Shadow 4 made it almost as long as I did. 14 months, 9 missions. Then he just disappeared. Never reported in. Never found. The program was quietly shut down after that. Too many losses. Too much risk. Not enough reward. So there were 5 total shadow operators. 4 dead or missing. And you, the only survivor, erased from history. That about sums it up, Grant said. One of the young SEALs, a petty officer named Collins, spoke up hesitantly. Sir at Bud S. They told us Shadow 1 was a legend because he represented the ultimate SEAL. Someone who could operate completely alone, completely self-sufficient, completing impossible missions through pure skill and will. They said whether he was real or not didn't matter because the ideal was real. Grant looked at the young operator for a long moment. The ideal is bullshit, son. Operating alone isn't noble. It's terrifying. It's lonely beyond anything you can imagine. You know what I dreamed about during those missions? Not glory, not recognition. I dreamed about sitting in a bar with my teammates, drinking beer, telling stupid jokes. I dreamed about being part of a team again instead of being a ghost who couldn't even acknowledge his own existence. Collins looked stricken. I'm sorry, sir. I didn't mean... I know what you meant, and I understand why they tell the story that way. It motivates young SEALs to push harder, to believe they can accomplish anything. But the truth is uglier than the legend, and you deserve to know the truth. Master Chief Webb came back into the room, his face grim. Admiral, I spoke to the archivist at Coronado. She's going to dig through classified files from the Vietnam era, but she said something interesting. There's a category of records called compartmented special access that requires presidential authorization to access, files so classified that even knowing they exist is restricted. Hastings felt a surge of hope. That's where they'd bury something like shadow operations. Yes, sir. But getting access would require going through channels all the way to the Secretary of the Navy, maybe higher. And even then it might take months or years, and there's no guarantee the files still exist. We start the process today, Hastings said. I don't care how long it takes. This man deserves his story to be told. Grant held up a trembling hand. Admiral, wait. Before you do this, you need to understand something. If you expose shadow operations, you're not just vindicating me. You're opening up questions about illegal military operations, assassinations, violations of international law. You're creating a political firestorm that could damage the Navy, damage Special Warfare Command, maybe even damage the SEAL community. I don't care, Hastings said firmly. Justice is more important than politics. Is it? Grant's voice was sharp now. Think about it, Admiral. What good does it do to expose 50-year-old operations? The people who ordered them are dead. The war is over. The only thing you'll accomplish is tarnishing the reputation of the teams and giving ammunition to people who want to restrict special operations. Hastings sat back, the weight of Grant's words hitting him. The old man was right. Exposing classified assassination missions from Vietnam could have serious repercussions in today's political climate. It could fuel arguments that special operations forces were unaccountable, that they operated outside the law. So what do you want, sir? Hastings asked. You want us to just walk away? Pretend we never heard your story? Grant was quiet for a long moment. I want what every operator wants. I want my brothers to know I existed. I want the men in the teams to know that Shadow 1 was real, that those missions happened, that someone did what needed to be done even when it cost everything. But you don't want it public. I want it remembered within the community. I want young SEALs to know the full story, not the legend, but the truth, the sacrifice, the cost, the price of operating alone. Grant looked at each of the SEALs in the room. That's what matters. Not medals, not public recognition. Just the knowledge that I served, I suffered, and I survived. That's enough. Webb stepped forward. Sir, there's another way. We could document your story internally. Classified oral history, restricted to SEAL community access only. It wouldn't be public, but it would be preserved. Future generations of SEALs would know the truth. Grant considered this. that I could live with, as long as it's accurate, no hero worship, no sanitizing the ugly parts. Tell it like it was. The fear, the killing, the loneliness, the cost. I can make that happen, Hastings said. I'll personally oversee the documentation. And sir, there's something else. Your medical care here at the VA. It's inadequate for what you deserve. I'm going to arrange for you to be transferred to Naval Medical Center, San Diego, under special warfare veteran care. Better facilities, better specialists. It's the least we can do. I don't need special treatment. It's not special treatment. It's appropriate treatment for a combat veteran who gave everything for his country. Hastings stood. Sir, you've been erased for 50 years. That ends today. You might not get public recognition, but within the SEAL community, you're going to be honored the way you should have been honored 50 years ago. Grant's eyes filled with tears. I don't deserve honor. I failed. That POW who died, you saved 2 men who were written off as dead, Hastings interrupted. You brought them home to their families. That one man who died, he died fighting to escape, not rotting in a cage. You gave him that chance. That matters. Grant was openly crying now. Decades of suppressed emotion finally breaking through. I've carried them all. Morrison, the 4 other shadow operators, that POW, every target I killed. Carried them for 50 years thinking no one would ever know. Thinking I'd die and it would all disappear like I never existed. Master Chief Webb knelt beside the wheelchair, put his hand on Grant's shoulder. You exist, sir. You mattered. And every SEAL who hears your story will carry a piece of it forward. That's how we honor our brothers. By remembering. By learning. By making sure the sacrifices aren't forgotten. Collins, the young SEAL, stepped forward. Sir, at Budus they told us to never quit. To embrace the suck. To push through pain we didn't think we could survive. They said Shadow 1 represented that ideal. Now I know you're real. And the story is harder than the legend. But it means more. Because you lived it, and you're still here. Grant looked at the young operator. Then learn from it, son. Don't romanticize operating alone. Don't think isolation makes you stronger. The teams exist for a reason because we're better together than apart. I survived shadow operations, but I didn't come back whole. I came back broken, and I've spent 50 years putting the pieces back together. That's the lesson we'll pass forward, Hastings said. Not that you were invincible, that you were human, that you endured impossible circumstances and survived, that you paid a price for your service that no one should have to pay, and that despite everything, you're still here, still willing to share your story so others can learn. Grant wiped his eyes. If you're going to tell my story, tell one more thing. What's that, sir? Tell them I'd do it again. His voice was firm despite the tears. I'd volunteer again. I'd go back into that jungle. Because those 2 POWs got to go home to their families. Because the intelligence I gathered saved American lives. Because someone had to do it and I was able. That's what being a SEAL means. Doing what needs to be done, paying whatever price is required, and living with the consequences. Hastings saluted. It was rare for an admiral to salute an enlisted man. But in that moment, rank didn't matter. What mattered was one warrior honoring another. Shadow 1, Hastings said. The teams remember, and we won't forget again. 8 months later, Admiral Hastings stood in the secure briefing room at Naval Amphibious Base Coronado in San Diego, California. Before him sat 40 SEAL operators, instructors, senior enlisted leaders, and officers from across Naval Special Warfare Command. On the screen behind him was a single photograph. William Grant in 1968, 22 years old, wearing his SEAL Team 1 uniform, young, confident, whole. Gentlemen, Hastings began, now what I'm about to share with you is classified at the highest levels. It will not leave this room. It will not be discussed outside secure spaces. But it needs to be told because it's part of our history, part of who we are as SEALs. He clicked to the next slide. A worn challenge coin appeared. On one side, the SEAL trident. On the other, Shadow 1. For 50 years, we've told stories about Shadow 1. We've used him as motivation for BUDS candidates, as an example of what a SEAL can accomplish operating alone. We've treated him as a legend, a myth. Hastings paused. He's real. His name is William Grant, and he's sitting in the back of this room. 40 heads turned. William Grant sat in his wheelchair in the back corner, wearing his original SEAL Team 1 jacket that Hastings had recovered from a storage unit Grant hadn't opened in decades. His hands trembled on the armrests, but his eyes were clear. The room erupted in spontaneous applause. These were hard men, warriors who'd seen combat across multiple theaters, and they stood to honor a man most of them had thought was fictional. Grant didn't smile, didn't wave, just sat there, accepting the recognition with the same quiet dignity he'd shown in the VA hospital. When the room settled, Hastings continued. Over the past 8 months, we've conducted an extensive classified oral history with Chief Grant. We've documented his 13 shadow missions in detail. We've corroborated what we could through declassified intelligence reports and operational summaries. And we've confirmed that everything he told us is true. Master Chief Webb stood up from the front row. For those who don't know, I had the privilege of interviewing Chief Grant for over 60 hours, recording his missions, his experiences, his lessons learned, and I want to share something he told me that I think every SEAL needs to hear. He looked at Grant, who nodded permission. Chief Grant said that the hardest part of shadow operations wasn't the danger. It wasn't the isolation. It wasn't even the killing. It was coming home and not being able to tell anyone what he'd done, not being able to grieve with his brothers, not being able to process the trauma because officially, he didn't exist. Webb's voice thickened with emotion. He said he spent 50 years in his own cage. The POWs he rescued got to go home to their families and rebuild their lives. But he came home to silence, to erasure, to a government that asked him to do impossible things and then denied he existed. The room was absolutely silent. He told me, if I could change one thing, it wouldn't be the missions. It wouldn't be the leg I lost or the men who died. It would be having brothers to share the burden with, because no one should carry that weight alone. Webb sat down, wiping his eyes. Hastings clicked to the next slide. It showed a memorial wall design, 5 names engraved in stone. Morrison, Stevens, Chen, Rodriguez, Grant. We're creating a classified memorial at the Naval Special Warfare Center. It will be accessible only to SEAL community members with appropriate clearances. It will honor the 5 shadow operators, 4 who died, 1 who survived. It will tell their story so that future generations of SEALs understand the cost of those operations. He clicked again. Another slide. A new course curriculum. We're also incorporating Chief Grant's experiences into advanced training. Not the tactics, those are outdated, but the psychological preparation, how to operate under extreme isolation, how to process trauma, how to come home from missions that break you and find a way to keep serving. One of the younger officers raised his hand. Admiral, will Chief Grant be involved in the training? Only if he wants to be, Hastings said, looking at Grant. We've asked. He's considering it. Grant's voice came from the back, stronger than it had been in the hospital. I'll do it, but not to glorify what I did. To warn you what it costs. To make sure none of you ever have to carry what I carried. The belief that you don't matter, that your service doesn't count, that you're alone. He wheeled himself forward slowly, the room parting to let him pass. When he reached the front, he turned to face the assembled SEALs. I volunteered for shadow operations because I thought I was tough enough, smart enough, good enough to handle anything. I was wrong. No one is tough enough to handle that kind of isolation without cost. I survived the missions, but I didn't survive them whole. His voice was raw now, vulnerable in a way that made these hard men lean forward. I lost 50 years. 50 years of being part of the teams. 50 years of brotherhood. 50 years of knowing I mattered. And I can never get that back. He looked at each man in turn. So learn from my mistake. Don't romanticize isolation. Don't think you're strong enough to do it alone. The teams exist because we're better together. Because we share the burden, because we bring each other home, not just from the battlefield, but from the darkness that follows us after. A SEAL in the 3rd row stood up. He was in his 50s, graying hair, a senior chief with 30 years of service. Chief Grant, My name is Tom Patterson. My father was Captain James Patterson, Army Special Forces. He was one of the POWs you rescued in 1975. The room went electric. Grant's hands gripped the wheelchair. Your father? He survived? He did, sir. Lived until 2018. Died peacefully in his sleep surrounded by his family, me, my 2 sisters, and 5 grandchildren. Patterson's voice broke. He told me about the rescue. He was sworn to secrecy about the details. But he told me a Navy SEAL came for them when everyone else had given up. That the SEAL lost his leg getting them out. That he owed his life to a man whose name he never learned. Grant was crying openly now. I thought maybe he blamed me. For the other man. For Corporal Williams who died. He didn't blame you, sir. He spent the rest of his life honoring you. Every year on the anniversary of the rescue, he'd raise a glass and toast the shadow who brought us home. He never stopped looking for you, trying to find out who you were so he could thank you. Patterson walked forward, pulled something from his pocket. Before he died, he gave me this. Told me if I ever found you, to give it to you. It was a challenge coin, worn, old. On one side, an Army Special Forces crest. On the other, engraved words, to Shadow 1, you gave me 43 more years. Thank you. J. Patterson. Grant took the coin with shaking hands, staring at it like it was a holy relic. 43 years. He had 43 more years. Because of you, sir. He met my mother in 1976. They got married in 1977, had me in 1979, my sisters in 1981 and 1984. He became a teacher, taught high school history for 30 years, touched thousands of lives. Patterson knelt beside the wheelchair. All of that, my life, my sister's lives, his students, his grandchildren, all of it exists because you refused to leave him behind. Grant couldn't speak, could only hold the coin and sob. Admiral Hastings let the moment settle, let the weight of it fill the room. Then he spoke quietly. This is why we do what we do. Not for glory, not for recognition, but for this. For giving people more years, more life, more chances to love and be loved. He looked at the assembled SEALs. Chief Grant's story is classified, but the lesson isn't. The lesson is that every mission matters, every life saved ripples forward, and that no operator should ever feel erased, forgotten, or alone. We are brothers, we carry each other, and we make sure the sacrifices are honored. The room stood as one, saluting William Grant, not the legend, not Shadow 1, the man, the SEAL who'd given everything and received nothing in return for 50 years. Grant returned the salute, tears streaming down his weathered face, holding a challenge coin from a man he'd saved, proving that his service had mattered after all. 2 years later, William Grant passed away at age 84 at Naval Medical Center, San Diego. His funeral at Fort Rosecrans National Cemetery was attended by over 300 Naval Special Warfare personnel. Admiral Hastings gave the eulogy. Shadow 1 taught us that legends are born from real people who do impossible things at impossible cost. He taught us that the weight of service doesn't end when the mission ends. And he taught us that brotherhood means making sure no one carries that weight alone. 12 SEALs from SEAL Team 1 carried his casket. Tom Patterson placed his father's challenge coin in the casket before it was lowered into the ground. And at the Naval Special Warfare Center in Coronado, 5 names were carved into stone in a memorial accessible only to SEALs. Morrison, Stevens, Chen, Rodriguez, Grant, Shadow Operators, 1968-1975. They served in silence so others could live in freedom beneath it. A plaque with William Grant's final words to the teams. The shadows kept me alive, but brotherhood brought me home. Never operate alone. Never let a brother be forgotten. Never stop bringing each other back. Every SEAL who graduates from Buddhas now visits that memorial. They learn the real story, not the legend, but the truth. They learn about the cost of isolation, the weight of service, and the reason the teams exist. And they learn that sometimes the greatest warriors are the ones who survive long enough to teach others that strength isn't about operating alone. It's about refusing to let anyone else do the same. Senior Chief Tom Patterson retired from the Navy in 2027 after 28 years of service. His final assignment was as an instructor at the Naval Special Warfare Center, where he made sure every SEAL candidate heard his father's story and William Grant's story. On his retirement day, he placed a photo at the Shadow Operators Memorial. It showed his father, healthy and smiling, surrounded by his family at his 80th birthday party. Beneath it, a note. Dad got 43 more years because Shadow 1 refused to leave him behind. I got a lifetime with my father. My children got a grandfather. Thank you will never be enough. The Shadow who saved him couldn't read it. But every SEAL who passed the memorial did, and they remembered. These heroes served in silence. Don't let their stories die the same way. Like, subscribe to Silent Veterans, and share. Honor the legacy. Remember the sacrifice.